I think success in education can simply be described as the accurate application of knowledge and understanding. Most of the time. I prepare as much as I can, but luckily for us, we have a material and curriculum to go off of. So I'm pretty confident that that will be a proper guide to move through the class and really develop through the lessons and the proper topics. But yeah, a little preparation doesn't hurt. And I think that will lead to even more success within the classroom.
There's a lot of different ways, I think. My main one that I always say definitely to my TEFL students is building rapport with the student, definitely trying to have a good relationship with them, remembering names, giving praise, remember to correct. Students do appreciate correction. But the best thing I think for student satisfaction in the class is a wrap-up. For me as well, satisfaction for me is when I do a wrap-up and I see the students giving me back information that they've learned in the class, and they feel that they've learned and I feel that they've learned. So it's a successful class.
I think we've got some words here from live feedback from our teachers as well, and I think the main word seems to be engagement. So that when the students feel engaged, they need to feel engaged in the class as well, but also the teacher as well. And if both parties are participating, then you know you've got an efficient class where learning is going to be a possibility.
That's great, and I think we all plan for that. But sometimes we have unexpected situations that cause stress.
Mm-hmm.
What are these factors, Graham and Alexis, that in your opinion can cause some stress for the teachers and for the students?
Yeah, just off what Dan said there, actually, sometimes what stresses me is my personal time management. Sometimes I run so far with a class and production that I run out of time for a wrap-up. But what I tend to use is then try and use the email for a wrap-up. But personal stresses for me are, I have a very kind of, not rigid, but I have a strong belief in a certain way of teaching. And sometimes the material is not ready for me to do it in that certain way. It stresses me out. Yeah, that's definitely a big stress for me.
Yeah, I think for me, the two biggest stressors are time management, which goes to what Graham said, and also behavior. I think it's worth it to mention behavior management, especially with younger students. And that also relates to the materials. So with older and younger students, the material needs to be at the right level for them to engage them. So it can't be too hard and it can't be too easy. And then you run into problems with behavior when you're outside that range. So that obviously relates to the quality of the materials and also the teacher's ability to differentiate the material.
Yeah, that's like another thing as well. Like with the behavior, like the reaction you get from a student. Sometimes you plan and you prepare a class and you know exactly what you want to do, and then you just open this topic. You can just tell by the look in the students' eyes that they don't care what you're going to teach them, and it's really stressful. So this is there's the flexibility that you then have to deal with that stress, I guess, is the preparation as part of it.
So in cases like that, if you have that feeling, what would you need to have in order to overcome it? What are you thinking, oh, I wish I could have in this moment? What is that?
I think for me, obviously having quality materials, but being able to know how to use those materials. So, depending on, whoever the writer of the material was, I think it would be great if they could provide some more explanation on, how they teach it and then also how they adapt it. So like how they would adapt it to a higher level learner or a low level, because most of the time, the activity isn't going to fit your student perfectly. So you really have to know how to adjust it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Dan, you've been correcting a lot of activities too. And do you have the feeling that maybe with little tweaks we can achieve even better results?
Yeah, I do. I think with activities, it's very important when we make them, and I've done this with my TEFLs, I think it's important to think that every teacher is going to teach those activities differently. and the opportunity to be able to be diverse with those, and like we were saying just now, that you can adapt them for lower or higher levels, is very important. So I think following an activity like strictly too much by the book can actually lead to a boring activity. You have to be ready to go off in different directions from those activities as well. It's a lot of improvisation, which just comes with time of teaching, I think.
That's right. The more experience you have, the more able you are to adapt the activities, and maybe for a newer teacher it's difficult to simplify an activity or make it more difficult, but with experience you kind of learn the tricks.
Yeah. Definitely. I think it helps with time management as well if you're able to do a bit more improvisation, because you can make an activity last a bit longer or a bit shorter depending on how you want to manage the time in your class.
Yeah. Our teachers here were saying that if we had perhaps more current affairs topics, that might be useful as well, but also some general ones that could be applied to every class, like perhaps common mispronunciation exercises that could just be like a list on the side that we can say, oh, well, here's a list that you might want to look at for every class almost for a quick
well, that's a great idea, actually. Yeah, absolutely. So now that we're talking about the material, it is really important that we have good material. So what type of classes and what type of activities and class dynamics do we need for a great class?
I guess like diverse material, like using lots of different tools, whether you need the internet or videos, whatever, lots of different, a variety I think is key.
Yeah.
Props and attachments as well,
yeah. Okay, so we create our material, but we also reuse some activities. So do you guys think that activities have to have an expiration date? What do you think?
So I think yes, because I think that it can be embarrassing for the teacher. I think if it looks like our content is out of date, it looks like, well, we don't update our system very often. It looks like our tools are just out of date. Our mentality perhaps could seem to be a bit in the dark ages. I think the student is going to look at it and perhaps think that as well.
Yeah.
And I think it also represents the company better. Yeah. I think it makes the company look like we're more up to date with the times, and again, our teaching methods are more up to date. Yeah. Not only our content, but also our methods of the way we teach.
Yeah. While I would agree with you, I mean, I will agree with you, but
this is not what we talk about.
Just because a text is maybe a year old or so doesn't mean some of the language in the text is still relevant. Maybe there's some useful expressions or phrasal verbs or something in there that you can go on. So maybe you won't spend so much time talking about what it is. You can still use some of the language, no?
I think there is a key word that I'm sure that Graham, if you've listened to Rob, phrasal verbs. I know that you have to say something about it.
What's that?
No, for me, there's not enough. For me, I think phrasal verbs make such a massive part of speaking English.
Yeah.
I don't think I say a sentence without using one. I mean, maybe I just did. But they're just the key part. For me, they're even more important than idioms. But that's linked me nicely to what I wanted to say as well. Idioms. When you're teaching idioms or when you're creating idioms, I love talking to my grandmother, but I don't want to teach my students to talk like my grandmother.
Yeah.
And any idioms that you get, I'm like, I've never used that. That's something like you said.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful with idioms, right? Because some of them actually are really not relevant from time to time, and so how often do you use it?
Yeah,
I think they could be good as a little, maybe not a roundup, but before. If you've got like 5 minutes to kill or something like this, or a bit of space at the end of a class, you could put it in and say, oh, well, this is like a really English thing you might find interesting more than useful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And sometimes students actually enjoy it because they see some of the similarities with ones that are in Spanish or whatever, but not always.
Excellent.
Yeah. And what you were saying there about older materials, I actually had fun with an old material the other day. You had one on Arsene Wenger, which was really old, but it just came out at the perfect timing. So I taught the class about Arsene Wenger, then changed the title to be about President Rajoy. It was all about a TV farewell and how unsuccessful this person had been in their last 8 years. And we managed to turn it, and we made a really good activity out of what essentially was an old one. So they can be adapted.
Yeah.
Excellent. I would like to encourage everyone that is watching us to share their opinions and to let us know what are the things that they need for successful classes, or their tips about how to avoid stressful situations.
Just to add here that we've got both Maria and Peter have also both said that current news activities, we should have more of them, but they also need to have more expiration dates.
Yeah.
That'd be a good idea.
I think they're the ones that need it rather than sort of just a general topic.
Politics, for example, definitely.
It changes all the time, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but we end up talking about Trump all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with most of them topics anyway, even if we haven't got a specific activity related to it, they kind of come up in conversation at the start of the class anyway. You know, the students, the second with Rajoy, if we go back to the example, the second, all the classes were talking about him, even though we didn't have any material specifically on that.
But it would be amazing that we catch that news and turn it into an activity for everyone, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so what about technology? How can technology help us? What do you think, guys? Can we be happier with better technology?
I think technology, yes, but I think, for example, when it comes to online and offline, we need to be careful because there have been places where I teach where I don't have Wi-Fi. So you need to just be aware of what facilities are available at the company and whether we can use that or not. Whether you have videos, if you can't use the video, if you can't access it, we'll get text up instead.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Alternative, of course. So, please. Alexis, go on.
I was just going to say on that, I think that if somebody is writing an activity and they have something that requires internet access, they should always have an alternative.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Especially with videos, what do we need? Like a transcript or some
Yeah, I mean, even
summary?
if you just have a simple text, so you have the video and then a text as well. So if you can't watch the video because it doesn't load, you've always got the text to fall back on. Otherwise, the activity becomes useless.
Excellent. All right, so as for format of the activities, do we need all the activities to follow the same format? Are there any specific activities that would require a different format? What do you guys think?
I think perhaps with like students who are starting out, it could be a good idea. I mean, to have a broad range of types of activities, but to have some that are similarly structured for the earlier students, because it could, if they're feeling a bit unconfident about what they're doing, then it could be good for them to get up to scratch, I guess, and feel more established with the English. They could go, okay, I know a bit more about what I'm doing, what to expect from my class. So in the beginning stages, I think it could be useful.
Maybe in the beginning, actually, I think it could be, but maybe it could become a bit boring and repetitive if you always have the same questions and sort of answers matching, blah, 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 blah. It gets a little bit tedious and boring, and maybe they get too used to it, maybe. So maybe, try to be diverse again if we go back to that word. I don't know what you guys in Madrid think.
I don't know. It's hard to say because I think some of them do need to be structured in the same way. And like I say, the teachers are all going to teach them in their own individual ways, which is what I think is really important, especially with topics. I mean, topics can be set up differently. It's nice to have statistics and graphs rather than just someone reading an article or you reading an article to them. But even with an article, you can read half, they can read half, they can read it to each other, you can concept check them, or there's loads of different ways you can do it with topics. I think with grammar, depending on the student, some like to be shown a rule, some like to do it conversationally, but I think with grammar activities, I don't think it's too much of an issue to have a similar kind of setup for the way that you're going to teach the grammar rule, for example. Vocabulary is pretty much conversational, and you can say, give me a definition, or use it in a sentence, or tell me what this is, or describe what you're talking about. They guess the word. There's loads of ways to do vocabulary, but grammar, I think the structure of the activities can be quite similar the way through. Maybe with an explanation, maybe with some examples, the way that we can set it up. I think grammar can be quite similar most of the time, but topics have to be diverse. And again, it's just down to the teacher and how you decide to teach it.
Yeah.
So I'm really down with this idea of think about how other teachers are going to teach the activities that you're making. Don't just think about yourself when you're making an activity.
I think that's a great message. I really want to, thank you, Dan, for that, because it's true. We prepare material for many teachers. It has to be definitely suitable for everyone. Colby, I think you wanted to add something to this?
Oh, yeah, right. I was going to say it also kind of comes down to versatility. So I don't think that there's really any harm in kind of experimenting like with the format and just to kind of see like maybe like we can reshape a grammatical activity and maybe we see better results or vocabulary activity. It doesn't hurt to try something new, and if it doesn't work, then we can kind of fall back on the old structure. And it kind of just depends on what works.
Yeah, definitely. We have to be brave, experiment new things, new approaches. We have a comment there.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we have from the Auxinity team who are saying we plan to develop technology that allows teachers to maintain all the activities you need offline. So that's coming in.
Perfect.
But also.
Excellent.
Also, Catherine says, when teaching younger children, do you find yourself not using the iPad or tablet as much, and improvisation plays a bigger role? Likes games, drawings. How can you keep younger children engaged? I think that sounds like a bigger topic.
Yeah.
But I think improvisation will always play a bigger role, right?
Yeah.
It will always play a big role.
Yeah, I think I have some younger students, and I think that I've tried to use the computer with them occasionally, and you would think because they're so technologically advanced that they would like it, but I think they really just respond better to more physical, materials, things that they can do with their hands.
They're much more tactile children, aren't they? They want to play with stuff.
Yeah.
We were mentioned earlier about like the I guess way they were teaching activities. I mean, I still think we should stick very much with a PPP sort of style of doing things, unless you want to do test, teach, test, and work with inductive. So when you're working with a student at a lower level, you want to present something, then practice it, then produce it. I don't think we should. I'm all up for experimenting, but I still like that method. For me, I really believe in it. And then when you want to push a little bit more, you can just move the produce and the practice and the present around to do test, teach, test. And give it more of an inductive method. I don't want to stray too far from that.
Okay, excellent.
We've also got a comment here from Edmund who says, to avoid any stress, prepare before the class. The activities are designed that anyone could teach it. There's an intro, bulk material, and a conclusion. So primarily prepare.
Yeah, well, yeah. Crystal clear.
Yeah.
I agree. Absolutely.
I agree. But I guess it comes down to how the materials are prepared. I'm a big believer in that kind of innate learning. So I think Rob and Peter were talking a couple of weeks ago about at school we get taught spelling more than we get taught grammar in the UK. Mm-hmm. So the presentation of a written word to a student in Spanish is just a nightmare. I hate seeing it as a teacher. I'd rather a new piece of vocabulary was introduced with an image, so I could teach them it verbally.
Yeah.
And then later on, because I didn't learn how to spell until I could say most words. That's how English works. So I'd like to see that more with materials. That's one of the things that stress me, as I was saying earlier. It's the way that materials are made.
In this regard, there is one thing that every now and then we talk about, which is length of texts. Because, sometimes texts are too long. But what is too long? What is too short? In your opinion, guys?
We've put a limit for 150, haven't we?
More or less,
yeah.
yes.
And I think that's really helped a lot.
Yeah,
I think it's really, really good. Because some of the older activities that come through on a weekly basis, and I have to just avoid them because the text is too long. Or I cut and paste bits out and make it a shorter version.
So some ideas can be, or some tips can be just to provide bullet points instead of the...
It can be just as effective to have bullet points. It's not necessary always to have a big long text, and you spend more time going over it than anything else. So simple but effective.
I think also it depends on a text, how you do it in the class, because don't just get them to read the whole thing.
No.
If you've got a group of 3 or 4 and it's like a longish text, get them to read a paragraph each, but after each paragraph, speak about it together.
Yeah.
Otherwise they just lose themselves reading and they're not taking any notice in what they're saying. Pronunciation errors come up. They're saying words without knowing what they're meaning. Or you can read it to them and they have to listen to you, and then you say, what was I just talking about?
Yeah.
Tell me what I was talking about. There's loads of ways you can use an article without just having them mindlessly read it,
Yeah.
Like you say, things like bullet points, graphs, statistics are quite interesting for getting conversation going rather than just mindlessly reading some articles,
Yeah, and I think several times in classes when I've asked students to read the text and then ask them a concept question later, they're like, I don't know, I was so focused on pronouncing everything,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We've got a question here from Peter who asks, what advice would you give to a new teacher who is nervous about teaching? E.g., they have a bit of stage fright or something like that.
Okay.
Have fun.
Yeah, have fun. Do a little preparation. Like, just know your material. Expect to be able to give proper explanations on certain concepts, and just know your stuff. And yeah, have fun.
Remember, you're a teacher as well. Remember that you're there, and you're like the guy there. You're the monitor, so you're in charge in a way. But just have like I use a lot of humor in my classes. Like, take the mick out of myself. If I know the students well enough, I take the mick out of them. They do it with each other. So I like it to just be. Or just spending some time with some friends, but you're there to just monitor them and correct them on issues they might have, you know?
Yeah, treat them like people.
Exactly.
You know, like get to know them like a little bit. Just kind of.
They're individuals, you know. They're
Exactly.
individual people. So.
I remember a tip that some weeks ago Beverly gave here in a talk, and she said, "Remember that it's not about you; it's about the students. So if you think about it, she's quite right. Mm-hmm. So remember that they have to be the main participants, the main characters in your class.
Yeah.
So maybe that advice is also...
They're not trying to catch you out.
No, I mean, that's it. It's not like they're there to test
learn.
you, right? They want to learn. And like Dan said, I think adding a bit of humor relaxes everybody.
Mm-hmm. Guys, how would you feel about the students having or participating in the curriculum preparation or tailoring their classes? Would you like them to participate? How?
I have like some students who say they want to. When we, as a school, for us, we don't tend to give homework. But I have some students who say, can I do some writing for you and bring it in for you? Mm-hmm. And for the first 5-10 minutes, can we go through it? Or can we do some business emails or something like this? And I don't mind. I'm like, if you want to structure your class a little bit this way, that's fine. Yeah. I will come with activities and I'll prepare as I would normally. Mm-hmm. But if there are things that you would like to do on top of this, I'm open to that for you.
Okay.
Between needs and goals of the student, right? So the student has their goals. They tell you what they want to do.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily know what they need. So I think you, as being a teacher there, you figure out what they're lacking that they might not know that they're lacking.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that a student can say, I want to learn this, this, and this. These are my weak points. But you have to spend some time with that student to figure out, maybe they actually need this as well, or this, or maybe that thing they want isn't as necessary as something that they're doing or making a mistake with, you know?
Yeah, I think like a minor role in kind of like understanding like where they want to take the class, but like all in all, like if they only want to focus on writing, to do an entire class based off of writing, it's really not going to help the student as much as they think. So like as teachers, we kind of know more about the student and what they need. Yeah, it's about needs and wants.
Yeah.
So I think like a minor role and kind of having like a direction kind of for the class, but all in all, it's like really up to us to structure a lesson that would most benefit them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think having a bit of time dedicated to that is good. I think if we're thinking in terms of if there's a group though, you don't want to have one student dictate what's going to happen for the rest of the students as well. So maybe if it's one-to-one, that's fine, but you can't take up too much time just focused on one student if it's going to affect the learning of the others.
We have Autumn here who says, yes, I would like the student to take part in the class content because each individual has a different learning style, so they can tell you what works for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, we can take it into account, definitely.
And Miha says, what are some strategies that you use to deal with low energy monosyllabic students?
Okay.
That's a good question, actually. That again could be taken... talked about more in future, I think. But it's because I don't know if you guys
come back next week and we'll talk
about it. No, it does happen. I think just trying to find
every student to talk. I reckon there's not a student out there that you can't spend a certain amount of time with and end up getting them out of their shell. Maybe it takes like 45 minutes of the lesson, but I think you can do it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think once you found that thing that gets them talking, whether it's a hobby that they've got or something, then you could kind of always maybe try to relate structures or whatever back to that. But yeah, like I said, like Dan said as well, I think you can always find something.
With these students, what works better is instead of do you questions, WH questions. What, where, why
do you
when,
like this?
And then specific instructions such as describe, list, express your opinion. It works really better rather than do you like
this? Yeah.
Definitely.
Edmund says here, get to know your student better and teaching will be far easier. That's why individual student notes are so good. notes that we have on our classes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That could be a good idea.
Yeah.
Put their interests in there and things like that as well.
Okay, so what about the students' progress? How can we make sure that they have progress and give them that reassurance too? How do we measure progress and how do we make them feel that they've progressed?
Well, for me, it's all about measuring the production. You know, it's whatever you've taught, whatever they've learned in the class, acquired, whatever you want to say, whatever they've been going over with you, it's getting them to produce it. I think that's like a big thing that I see missing a lot with some teaching is that we teach them something, they're going to do an exercise, but I want them to use it. And not just maybe necessarily using it associated with pictures, but using it in their own life. And that is the production. For me, often when I have such a successful production session with a student, I don't feel the need for a wrap-up at the end of it. They've wrapped it up themselves.
Okay.
You know, and then we can carry on. That's the way I really see success, I guess, from what I'm teaching, and in their progress, they're really learning. What do you think, Alexa?
I think it's also helpful for students to see a bigger picture sometimes. So, like linking what you're doing to your previous work, like the previous class, or even bringing up at the beginning the last class and trying to connect it, and then also maybe talking about the future at the end. You know, just kind of put it into perspective for them, then they can kind of see their progress a little bit more.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think if you get to know a student, like I know that Oxbridge tend to be every 3 weeks. Over those 3 weeks, you can see the student maybe 3, maybe 6, maybe 9 times. And if you go in and you see them make a mistake with something that you've done the week before, a 5-minute revision session on that, and it all goes back into their head, you'd be surprised how much they appreciate it. Yeah. Just know, I do know how to do this, you know?
Yeah.
So I think revision, it's a shame because sometimes we have these rotations, but I see progression. If I don't see a student for 3 weeks and then I get them again, I still see that other teachers are doing a great job because I see that these students are progressing all the time, you know?
Great. Okay, we don't have much more time. Thank you guys, that was a great talk. And if you feel that you're working with a lot of pressure and you need lesson plans and someone to help you organize your schedules and be a partner with you, do not hesitate, get in touch, join us at tuxinity.com. See you next Friday. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.